Hello, welcome to my channel, and thank you for watching and being here. The image I'm talking about in this episode is the caption reads Van der Kemp's church in Bethalsdorp, Port Elizabeth, uh, then called Algoa Bay. Johannes Theodorus van der Kemp, a Dutch medical doctor, was the first Christian missionary in the Eastern Cape, sent out by the London Missionary Society. Arriving in 1799, he first settled at the Maklwebe or the Piri River near Chief Nglika's residence, but was expelled in 1800 by rebel Boers who suspected him of being a British agent. He then moved to Graaff-Reinet, but was again expelled by rebel Boers. He finally set up his mission station in Bethalsdorp near Algoa Bay in 1803 to mostly Khoi and released slaves. Well, initially they were Khoi because the slaves were only released in 1834, pretty much long after Van der Kemp's time. The Khoi story in the 100-Year War is a huge story. It encompasses at least 3 decades, if not more, of the 10 decades that made up this war. And the first 3 wars were literally, combined wars, but between the Xhosa and the Khoi, who were amalgamating and themselves and facing the encroaching Boers initially, until the British arrived and annexed that region. And initially, it seemed that the Khoi made a perfectly understandable, under the circumstances, decision to ally with the British, who they initially thought could be an ally against the rapaciousness of the Boers, but was sadly proved wrong, and realized, in a very short space of time, that had been a huge mistake, and once again rose up with serious consequences, rose up against the British. Van der Kemp is an interesting character himself, a very successful missionary, where many missionaries had been failing in the past to proselytize and bring indigenous people into the Christian faith. He had a lot of success, and perhaps it was due to the existential threats that the Khoi, for instance, the indigenous people were facing, both the Khoi and the Xhosa. The Khoi, in that by the time Van der Kemp arrived, they had pretty much lost most of their territory to the Boers. And there is no more existential threat than that, being landless in the land of your birth. And imagined, found. I found this throughout, Khoi settlements, existing kind of Khoi settlements, that they only existed because of alliances with missionaries, where they could go into an alliance with the missionaries that would save their land from being devoured by rapacious settlers. And but with Bethalsdorp, I mean, the land had been pretty much taken up. And some of those Khoi were forced into the Katrif settlement that was granted to them by Stockenstrom, shortly after in the early um, 18, 1800s. But as I said at the in my introductory remarks, that when I decided to embark on this project, it was clear to me already from the get go that a as big a story, if not bigger, was the dispossession of the Khoi and the San, the Bushmen, um, and so that, as a result, because of that, that forms the basis of my trilogy that I'm attempting to produce. Um, that will look at the disposition of the Khoi and the San. And just a reminder that my working title for this trilogy is becoming mythical because it's taking so long to produce, is called Joining the String, Dispossession, Resistance, and Genocide uh, in Remembering South Africa and Remembering in South Africa. So the second image, which is related to the first, is a view of Van der Kemp's church in Bethalsdorp, Port Elizabeth. So you're seeing the church from the rear, and it's in the center of this image towards the horizon, and a pretty little village with when one enters behind. So if you're viewing this image, behind you is this really beautiful little kloof that in its time must have been an absolute jewel, that attracted the likes of Van der Kemp to set up the mission station there. And Van der Kemp, well, I'll introduce the third image at this point, which is present day service in Van der Kemp's church in Bethalsdorp, Port Elizabeth. Van der Kemp, as I said, was a very successful missionary. So successful that he fell foul of the London Missionaries Society's strict rules around decorum and how to behave and amongst the natives, because he kind of went native in his way of and I think with genuinely he saw uh, um, amongst the indigenous people great values that he found meaningful and attractive as a philosopher, as a thinker, as a poet, as uh, a humanist with in touch with his feelings, and certainly not there primarily as a a colonist or as an agent for the British, as the Boers mistakenly saw him. The Boers themselves were facing their own existential threat in the early 1800s with the English annexing the region and subjecting them to foreign laws that were counter to their frontier spirit, if you like. So there is a huge amount more to be said about the Khoi, and more will emerge in the telling of my story. There is quite a bit more in the telling along as I go along through this book about the role of the Khoi in this 100-year saga. So this is just an introduction to that um, no, that eventuality. So I'll end it here and say thank you for watching, and more information on myself and my work can be found on my website, a link to which, including my blog and email address, can be found in the video description below. If you like this talk, remember to click the like button and press subscribe. It helps the channel grow.